Hello, the game has started. It's my opponent to go first. I have a very non-bingo-y rack, but I have the Z, which is a good scoring tile, and I've got Vizier on my rack, but I don't think that can play with the board as it stands. I've also got Frizz, which doesn't play. My Z can go over the O, but that's not very helpful. So this is actually quite a tricky rack to sort out, and it may be worth hanging on to the Z and getting rid of some of the other tiles on the rack. Certainly the V and the F don't go well together. I could get rid of both of them and the duplicate I by playing fiver through the E for a low score, but sorting the rack out. Can I do better than that? Well, I could play Vizier. Actually, I think that's going to be quite a lot better. Yeah, Vizier for 22. Well, that's looking a little bit better. I'll need to get rid of the F this time round. I don't think there's a bingo here, either a 7 or an 8. But I'm just looking at the floaters in case anything springs to mind. Well, I'm not seeing anything. I've got an Esper going on the end of Vizier. So I could play soft and leave quite a good rack leave of ECT. That remains available. Yes takes an O in front. But I can't see a way of using that to good effect. So let me see what soft scores. £34 points. So can I score in the high 20s and retain the S? Let me just put this back and have a look for something better. I hope I'm not missing a bingo here. I'm just trying to see if I've got a play making Oh Yes coming down onto this L. Well, the only play I can see is Sockle, which isn't better than soft. What about a play running along the top of Yes? Well, again, I can't see anything there. So I'm going to go with soft. Well, a reasonably synergetic and balanced rack, but I don't think there is a bingo here, although there could be. Quite a few floaters to consider. Probably the vowels are more likely than the consonants, so I've got an A and an I to think about. I've got the ment ending and the men ending. And CH have synergy. But I'm not seeing any bingos at all. Soft takes, I think, an A after it, as well as an S. Now I know my M can go above the Y of Yes, so I could play Chem across here, and that stays available. 24 points for my opponent, so he's slightly in the lead. I've got a 2-letter combination to consider, TI. Can't see anything there. So this is what I'm thinking of. Chem for 29, keeping a pretty pretty good rack leave, and the score's good. It's not giving too much away. So I'll go with this. Finally, a decent looking rack. I've got Tornade as a 7. Now there may be nowhere for that. What does Yin take as a hook afterwards? Well, nothing that I've got, and FY takes nothing after it. Viziers takes nothing after it. So I may not have a spot for Tornade. Tornade has no anagrams. Chem takes nothing in front. So what about the floaters? What about the V? Can't see anything. A couple of I's to consider. Can't see anything there. And then I've got the A, L and O. Well, Ratooned doesn't fit. It looks like there may be something with the L, but I can't see it. Well, how frustrating, having got to a bingo. There's nowhere for it. I've got a 20-point lead. Now, what about coming through TI? Can't see anything there. I would have adornment through split M and N. I guess row I is a bingo lane. Well, it isn't anymore. Now my opponent hasn't provided anywhere for Tornade. I've got the over prefix. And I've got the D as an additional floater, but that doesn't help me, I don't think. Well, this is pretty frustrating. And I don't have any scoring tiles. We're dead level on 85, so I'm not miles behind or anything. I could play Vendor, but that wrecks the rack. However, this is a board with limited bingo lanes, so retaining a really bingo-y rack leave is less useful than it would be on a wide open board. Certainly if I had an S, then column 13 would be a great bingo lane. 15 minutes on my clock, 58 tiles left. Given that we're level, I'd like to keep the scoring going. I'm wondering if I have a play in column 3. Well, nothing that scores very much. This is quite a hot spot. So I could play Ode, or Odd there. Retaining AENRT. Now the trouble with this is if I draw 2 more low scoring tiles, I may struggle to score, even, and I may also have an unplayable bingo, which would be annoying. So I'm wondering about playing the A for an additional 4 points. I've now got the inter prefix with the I's of Viziers, and by playing an extra tile I'm increasing my chances of drawing an S. Well, that couldn't have been very much worse. And my lead is pretty slender, just 19 points. So what to do now? Quite probably change. I have no scoring tiles, only 1 vowel. This is a very unbalanced rack. And I'm thinking about chucking back all of the N's and one of the R's and retaining just ERT. I think yin takes a G and an S after it. I think the best I can do with this rack may be something like inner, keeping NRT. And that scores 10 points. That may be worth doing. It also obstructs my opponent from playing a 7-letter play ending in S. And it's not putting a vowel next to any premium squares. So I think inner, beginning with the first I of Viziers, is better than changing. Still an X to come. Locks is good, but I don't think it will be possible to score that both ways. If the inner spot is taken, I think I will be changing. "14 minutes on my opponent's clock, 13 on mine, and still 55 tiles to come. A bingo now for my opponent could be quite significant because I'm in no position to respond. If I do get to play inner, it only takes an S at the end. Oda didn't feel great last move. I'm wondering whether OD may have been better above HE. But having said that, the double word square right next to the E was quite hot. So my opponent burns an S, so has probably got another, especially as he's only scored 16 points. I think I still will go with inner. And I pick up 3 I's. However, if I can get rid of 2 of them, I could leave myself with quite a bingo-y rack leave. Inti is good, but I have no scoring tiles, so I'm going to struggle to score with this rack. And my opponent could well be coming in with a bingo now in row N. Snot takes an S. I infer that my opponent has got one. I have tinier on my rack. I don't think there are any 8-letter bingos with this set. So I'm looking around for spots where I can play. I haven't seen anything great so far. I do have Nittier and Tintier through the T of Snot, which would obstruct my opponent's bingo prospects if he's retaining an S, because I think row N is the only lane for bingos ending in S. But if I play Nittier, I'm opening up column 15 for a 9-timer. And providing additional floaters. It would be great if I could play off just 2 I's. The rack leave of Inter is quite strong. Now, Snot is not good, so that's coming off. Great. So I now know my opponent's rack. And he could have played betas and snots. And barites and rebates and turbias. So should I be taking out that spot? Well, if I play Inti, then that's not taking it out. I'm providing 2 new spots. Maybe I should just change 2 eyes. I'm just wondering how likely my opponent is to bingo elsewhere. I think I am going to... Well, I'm not sure. If I change, then my opponent will surely play a bingo making snots. But is there a way of obstructing that? I'm struggling to see anyway, and I think I will change and just get rid of 2 eyes. Horrendous pickup. Through an A, I would have internal. I am now expecting my opponent to play in row N, pluralizing snot, but I've got no scoring tiles, so I'm not going to score very much in row O. So, having said this is horrendous, I wouldn't want to overlook a bingo. But I can't see one. This certainly is not bad enough to change. "11 minutes on both of our clocks. Yeah. Okay. So I have lint across here and lin. There still are bingo lanes on this board through the floaters of inner. And I think if I don't play in this spot, then my opponent will. Through an E, I would have re-market, the E of inner not in the right spot. Now, what about marketer? That does play. I think that's good, and I'll certainly try it if it remains available. So that's marketer in column 11, but it may just be remarket. I note that my M cannot go above the H. Okay, great. Let's try remarket. Or its anagram. Marketer for 64. And if it stays on, I've got the first blank. But I've also got some high scoring tiles that I need to get through, in particular the Q. But I have feek in column 4, which is pretty good because it gets rid of the F as well. And the X is a nice tile to have on my rack. So at the moment we're pretty much dead level. Hopefully my opponent will be drawn to the triple word squares and leave feek alone. 26 tiles in the bag, including a blank and 1 S. But no bingo lanes on this board for 7-letter bingos ending in S, so not a massively useful tile. So are there alternatives to feek? Nearly fakir. And I do have fakir if I burn the blank, but I don't think that's going to be worth doing. Still 2 U's to come, but given that I've got the blank, I'd like to get rid of the Q to maximise my chances of bingoing. And although the board doesn't have many bingo lanes, I think there's potential for a bingo. Because a play in row A, for example, from A8 across is going to open a bingo lane in row B, and a play from the second R of marketer across to the triple word square is going to open 2 more bingo lanes. Still 1H to come. I mentioned that in case there's a second spot for feek. There's nowhere great for my X at the moment. I do have this spot for locks and flocks. That's only going to score around 30 points. And I can't see a way of playing the X at the top of the board to score well. 8 minutes on my opponent's clock. So, if feek is blocked, where can I play my Q? Great, it isn't, and only 27 points for my opponent. So, now, should I play caddies, burning the blank? 68 points. Versus 38. Tempting. So 38 for feek. I think I'm going to go with this because feek sets up an EX play. And there's not that much difference between 38 and 68. It's a 30-point difference. And the blank's worth about 25. So there's not much between the plays. So I think I will keep the better rack cleave. Excellent. I draw the second blank. I have the last S. And I have a scoring tile in the X. I've got a 14-point lead, which isn't very much, but I'm in a strong position. The downside is that at the moment, very few bingo lanes on this board. But do I have a bingo at the moment? So there's the floating F of feek. Can't see anything through that. But there may be. And, well, I think I've blocked ectoplasm. A gem, not good. Let me challenge that off. Yep, I have blocked ectoplasm. The eye is not a floater for a bingo. So why don't I get Lex down here for 43. And that is a pretty strong rack cleave. Just wondering if there are other bingo lanes. I guess column 13 is a bingo lane. Well, I think this is a pretty strong play. Okay, 2 U's, ordinarily not great, but U does go well with P. So I've got upsurge on my rack. Nowhere for that. I was hoping my opponent would open bingo lanes. He hasn't, but I have a 30-point lead. EF is not a bingo lane. So a bingo lane is coming down column 13, involving quite a few overlaps. Upsurge doesn't play. 8 minutes on my clock, 14 tiles left. So are there some other easier bingo lanes? Low takes nothing in front. So there aren't. I've got a 33-point lead. What I'm worried about doing is opening a bingo lane, which my opponent then bingos through. The remaining tiles, not massively bingo-y, but not massively un-bingo-y either. I think it's probably better if I just keep on scoring. So Lop is good. I could play Alp down here. 22 points, which is a good score in the context of this game. Or this particular board. There's still the J out there. But I don't think there are any huge 50-point J spots. And hopefully my opponent will play across from the R, because with any floater at all, I'm in a strong position to bingo. Yeah, that's strengthened the bingoiness of the rack. Now let me have another look down here. What would a bingo look like? Well, certainly a bingo beginning DES would work. $28 points for the J. Good to see the back of that. How many overlaps does it require? At least 3. 7 minutes on my clock, 10 tiles left. So, well, there could be something here, but it's difficult to spot. If the blank was a D, can't see anything. If the blank was a V, can't see anything. And if it's an S, again, can't see anything. And now I don't have any scoring tiles. 6 minutes on my clock. But I do want to keep the scoring going, because I'm only 27 points in the lead. Gosh, tricky position. So tempting to open the board up. I'm just wondering if there's a way I can do it with a selfish hook that my opponent can't use. But I haven't thought of anything yet. I guess it would help to get rid of the U. But where can I do that? I'm just wondering if I've got something running onto AM. Can't see anything. I can't pluralize feek. I'm looking around at the scoring tiles on the board. This is a really tricky spot. So tempting to play across from the R, but I don't think that's the right thing to do. What about playing in row C? I've got the O. Well, can't see anything great there. I think, well, there are still some high scoring tiles. I think I will play in row A across from here. So I can play route. Only 14 points. I wonder if there's a way of stretching across to the A and the M. 4 minutes on my clock. It's a shame. I feel like I'm burning bingo-y tiles for a really tiny score. So, what about playing down column 9? Well, that's no good. I'd have to burn a blank. Well, I don't like this. I'm burning bingo-y tiles for almost nothing. But I am at least strategically taking out a good spot for my opponent. But is there a better way of doing it? What about pluralizing Jeff A? No, I'm going with route because my opponent could score well by going on to AM. And I'm short on time. And this does retain the OS possibility. Well, a ton of 7-letter bingos here, I'm sure. Now, gosh, column 3 is a bingo lane because when I played Alp, Lop now takes an S in front. So there could be a 4-letter, 4-tile overlap, 7-letter bingo. One of my blanks would have to go in front of the U. That would be the G, M. Well, or it could be the O. I'm just thinking about if S goes in front of Lop, what could go in front of U? So what pair of tiles can be the first 2 letters of a bingo? Okay, I don't think that's going to be very fruitful. I'm 40 points in the lead. I have drawn a couple of scoring tiles, which mainly means my opponent hasn't got them. It should make it a bit easier to score. Great. My opponent has finally weakened and opened the board up. So, what do I have? Very difficult to see where it's just 3 minutes left. It would be nice to play through the E, but at the moment, certainly with the shortage of time, I'm looking to find a bingo. At the moment, I haven't seen anything at all, and I know there's going to be a ton. So, what have I got? I've got the con beginning. I've got baconers. Phew. Wow. Let me just confirm that I do have it. Yes, I do. What a relief. I was facing the agony of watching my clock dwindle away and not find one of the 12 million bingos. So, is there a better one? 2 tiles in the bag, they're going to be pretty horrendous. My opponent's not going to bingo back. He's not going to score very much in return. So I think I will just go with this. That's a pretty nice pickup. I'm definitely going out with this. So I've got Go, Ged and Uda and Go and Bo. My opponent would win if he bingoed, but he's not going to bingo with this rack. So where's the best spot for GO? Great, my opponent challenges, he loses 5 points. I've got Go, Gain and Out. 15 points. I've got Goo, Gi and O. 13 points. Yeah, so Roel I think is the best. Baconers was such a relief. I was starting to think that I wasn't going to spot a bingo. Certainly C and B together don't crop up that often, so there may be fewer bingos than I thought. However, when you've got 2 blanks, you generally feel there is going to be a bunch of bingos. 3 minutes on my opponent's clock, 1 minute on mine, but my opponent's got a pretty tricky rack. Great. My spot remains available. 15 for Go. just wait for my opponent to formally end the game, which he does. And the final score, 341 to my opponent, 408 to me, a winning margin of 67 points. So quite a tense game. Let's see what I missed. It was my opponent to go first. He played Allow. And this was my rack. I played Vizier for 22, keeping CF. Frizz, G1. Okay, well, a better score than Rackley, but pretty dangerous, putting an F over a triple word square, so I think Vizier is fine. Horrible rack for my opponent. He plays Yes. And now I play Soft for 34, and that looks fine. Nice rack for my opponent. He plays Yin. And I played Chem for 29. And I could have got 6 more points with Tench. Okay, well, again, that's opening up triple word squares. And I prefer Chem, although there's probably not much between them. My opponent plays Walled, and now I have Tornade, nowhere to play it that I saw. And I've just noticed if Soft takes an A, then certainly column 12 would have been available for words with AN in them, and I didn't consider that lane. However, no such bingo here. What did I do? I played Oda, and I didn't like that at all. It just didn't feel right. What did it keep? It kept Rent, and it scored 19 points. Okay, well, actually that's fine. It's not obviously inferior to the other options. My opponent's rack, he's got Stators. Yep. Doesn't play it. Now I had a horrendous pickup here. And I played Inner for 10. Intern. Yeah, probably slightly better. And my opponent has a ton of bingos, but phonies. And now this was my rack, tie right eye, M8. Yeah, that might have been worth playing. I'm not sure if it takes an S. But in general, this is pretty ropey. Nothing above 20, and a bingo-y rack gets wrecked. I played off 2 eyes and kept a decent rack leave. Now my opponent plays betas. I don't draw well from my change and play Lin for 24, but that looks fine. I could have got quite a bit more, or 10 points more with Linnet. And that probably would have been worth doing with 2 blanks to come. My opponent's rack, he plays Power. And now I have Marketer, which changed the complexion of the game. It put me slightly in the lead. And my opponent could have come back with Indicate, and he didn't. So now I'm actually behind. So my Marketer play brought me back into the game. Yes, because betas took my opponent ahead, so Marketer caught me back up. I'm now 20 points behind, but I've drawn the first blank and I've got scoring tiles. Wow, prefix H10, where's that? Okay, running across here. Worth thinking about. However, I prefer Feek. It's 19 points less, but the rack leave doesn't include the Q. And again, I prefer Feek over Caddies because of the value of the blank in this particular rack leave. So Feek is fine. My opponent doesn't have a bingo, and he phonied with a gem, possibly confusing it with again. And this was my rack. A13. Pox is down here. Pretty good. 62 points. And it's fine to burn 1 blank. Although an individual blank is worth 25, the second blank is worth a lot less. Yeah, so Pox is definitely better than Lex. My opponent doesn't have a bingo. Plays Age. And now this was a really tricky rack. I've got both blanks, but there are no bingo lanes on the board. I didn't want to open a lane in case my opponent scored highly off it. So I'm in a tricky spot. and I played Alp, which I think is fine. My opponent has the J and plays it. Again, no bingo. I'm surprised. What did I do? Oh, this was a really tricky rack. Yeah, and I think route is fine. My opponent's rack, he doesn't have a bingo. He does open the board up, which is fantastic. And now the moment of truth. How many bingos were there? Okay, a ton. So what I should have done with A and B is considered ABLE ending words, in which case I may have come up with closable. There's also obstacle. Wow. Well, you can see them here, and these aren't all of the playable bingos because the one I played isn't on this list, but under time pressure it can be hard to spot a bingo, so I was grateful for the one I did see. And then my opponent has Devo, and I go out with go and gain for 15, which was the highest scoring outplay. So a very interesting game. I don't recall a game of that ilk. Certainly quite unusual to have a couple of blanks on your rack towards the end of the game with the scores tight. It introduces a whole new mindset as to what to do, and so it was interesting playing through that and fun to come out the victor. So I hope you enjoyed watching that, and I will see you next time.